Hey guys, before we begin, I'd just like to discuss that this video is a collaboration with Pente Patrol Star Wars. We will both be doing the same idea and have the same start to our stories, but then diverge after a couple of minutes to take the story in our own unique path. Make sure to watch both videos, check his out in the description, and let us know what you thought of the collab in the comments below. Let's start the story early on in Ahsoka's career as a Jedi Padawan. The Battle of Ryloth was a significant campaign for Padawan Tano during the early years of the Clone War. The mission aimed to liberate the Twi'lek homeworld of Ryloth from the oppressive occupation of the Separatists. Ahsoka played a crucial role in the battle, but her journey was marked by a lot of emotional changes. Early on in the campaign, she was overeager, disobeying her master's orders, and ended up losing her squadron in the early stages of the battle. The devastation and suffering she had witnessed held heavy in her heart. All around her were the charred buildings and Twi'leks displaced from their homes, which was a harsh reminder of the reality of war. But during the battle, Ahsoka had a realization. Ever since she'd become a Padawan, all she'd done was fight and battle from battle against the Separatists, the so-called enemy. But when she was a youngling, she was taught the Jedi were meant to be about helping, about protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. Somewhere along the war, the line between helping and fighting had become blurred. In the aftermath of the battle, she sat alone and reflected. She couldn't shake the hollow feeling inside. The Jedi were supposed to serve the people, but all she saw was endless war, battle after battle. The Jedi were becoming generals, leading a war in a conflict that wasn't theirs. They weren't diplomats or peacekeepers anymore. They were soldiers, commanders, and warriors. Ryloth had been liberated, but at what cost? The people didn't just need soldiers, they needed hope, and what hope had she really offered them, aside from more destruction? Ahsoka stood up and wandered through their makeshift camp, her eyes distant, as clones moved efficiently around her, discussing strategies for the next battle. Another battle. There was always another battle. There was no peace, just more war. Her mind drifted back to the Twi'leks, huddled together in the crumbling shelters, waiting for aid that might never come. She had been so focused on winning the fight that she had forgotten why she was fighting. The Republic, the Senate, the Jedi. They were all part of a machine that churned out more war, and she no longer knew if she wanted to be a part of it. The war had consumed the Jedi, and in doing so, had stripped away their original purpose. She had joined the Order to help others, to serve the people, not to wage war. The decision she had been avoiding in her mind had finally become clear. She met with Anakin at his starship.
Well done, Ahsoka. We couldn't have won the battle without you. You were more than useful.
But that's just it. She didn't want to be useful in battle. She wanted to be beneficial to the people of Ryloth. She discussed what she had been thinking with Anakin, who sympathized and agreed, telling her that this will only be temporary until the war is over. But it's never temporary, and who knows when the war might end. She hands her master her lightsabers, and with great sorrow, tells him she's leaving both him and the Jedi Order, that she needs to find her own path. Anakin stands there stunned.
Ahsoka, what are you doing?
Not expecting the doubts with Ahsoka to be this strong. He too went through similar doubts as a Padawan, and almost left the Order, but Ahsoka had persevered. She turns away and walks towards the civilian transport, the ship filled with refugees and civilians as she left Ryloth. She knew this was the only way forward. She needed to find a new path, one that wasn't tied to war. She eventually makes her way towards Meridun, the site of a previous battle. Anakin, Ahsoka, and Aayla Secura had liberated the people of Meridun from a separatist invasion, but from the look of it, they had not recovered. Many of their homes still lay wasted, the landscapes burned, and ultimately the scars of battle still remained. Ahsoka's heart sank. This was not what victory was supposed to look like. She had left the people to fend for themselves in the aftermath. Walking through the wreckage, she felt the same disillusionment as she did on Ryloth. She found a quiet spot overlooking the valley where some of the battle had taken place, and she meditated deep in thought. Her mind kept replaying the scenes of destruction, the faces of the people she had met, and the nagging sense that the Jedi were no longer what they were supposed to be. War had changed them, and it had changed her. The galaxy needed Jedi, real Jedi, protectors, peacekeepers, and not warriors. The Order had lost its way, and Ahsoka knew that it wasn't enough to just leave the Jedi behind. She had to rebuild what they had lost to create something new. A new Jedi Order that served the people, not the Senate. one that stood for the values she had been taught. Her thoughts were interrupted by a familiar presence. Ahsoka sensed him before she could see him, but when she looked up, Anakin was standing on the edge.
Ahsoka, I finally found you.
He approached, and for a moment longer, neither of them spoke, as Anakin's eyes drifted over the ruins below, taking in the same devastation Ahsoka had been contemplating. Ahsoka broke the silence and told Anakin what she was contemplating in her mind, that the galaxy needed a new Jedi Order that served the people of the galaxy. They chatted back and forth, Anakin initially skeptical, but slowly began to understand the motivation behind Ahsoka's thoughts. She could sense the conflict in his eyes. He had always been loyal to the Jedi, but she knew he had his own frustrations. He tells Ahsoka how he felt the same as her years ago and nearly left the Jedi as a Padawan, but stayed. However, the Jedi have changed much since then, and he believes she is indeed right. Ahsoka tells Anakin they can change things, and he agrees. Together they will leave the Order and start a new Jedi Order with the principles that will serve the people of the Republic, instead of fighting in the Clone War. They discussed the principles of the new Jedi Order, and Anakin began regarding detachment, that this archaic principle of the Jedi must be abandoned, that attachment and love for those around us can give us strength, but only if trained properly, something in which the Order will do. They discuss combat, that although sometimes necessary, it will be their last resort, and only when provoked. Anakin and Ahsoka's new Jedi Order is built on the foundation of serving the people of the galaxy first and foremost. Their guiding principle is that they are the guardians of peace, not warriors or enforcers. Combat is only a last resort, and senseless war is strictly out of the question. This order does not operate as soldiers or commanders in conflicts. Instead, they focus on meditation, protection, and rebuilding communities in need. Their mission is to defend and uphold the vulnerable, ensuring that justice, compassion, and peace remain at the core of their actions. Through this philosophy, they aim to restore the true purpose of the Jedi, free from political manipulation and endless warfare. They will allow their members to have their own views on the Force and stray away from the rigid structure of the Jedi Council. They discussed their principles for many hours onwards and wrote up their manifesto. They discussed the best name for their new Jedi Order and eventually come up with the name the Grey Guardians, symbolizing the balance and serenity they hope to achieve, and decided to travel back to Coruscant where they would take this information. They distributed this throughout the Jedi Order to every member, which spread through like wildfire. Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, and his apprentice were creating a new Jedi Order, the Grey Guardians. Could it really be true? But it was, and many in the Order were persuaded by the principles they had come up with, as so many were disillusioned with the war. They offered for anyone to join the Grey Guardians if they wanted, and allowed a week for this. During this time, hundreds joined their Order, with key members Quinlan Vos, Aayla Secura, and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Kenobi was initially skeptical to join Anakin and Ahsoka's Order. He believed in his Padawan, but leaving the Order he had grown up with was not an easy thing to do. But he met with Anakin, and they discussed their vision, and Obi-Wan saw the resemblance between what Qui-Gon believed and Anakin's new Order, convincing the Master that it was the right choice. The Council was not happy about this, and many of them deemed it as treacherous. But the members with more of a conscience, including Yoda and Plo Koon, started to take this as a wake-up call. They were right, the Jedi had become soldiers, but they didn't believe the creation of a new Order is the answer, and arrogantly believed they will restore the Jedi to peacekeepers once the war was over. The Grey Guardians take their 900 members and settle on the planet Tython in the core, the original homeworld of the Jedi. They decide to set their sights away from the fighting in the Clone War and target an aspect of the galaxy that has ruined billions of lives, the crime syndicates. Their first target was the Hutt Canal, an ancient crime family that ruled in the Outer Rim with an iron fist. The Hutts had become infamous for their control over slave labor, illegal spice trade, and black market dealings. Planets under their influence were choked by crime, their citizens powerless against the tyranny of Hutt-controlled politicians and enforcers. Anakin and Ahsoka send strike teams of Jedi to free slaves and dismantle spice production facilities, liberating worlds like Nal Hutta and Tatooine, which had long been under Hutt domination. The Hutt political puppets were removed from power, giving the people a chance to rebuild their lives free from fear and opposition. Next, the Grey Guardians turned its attention to the Pike Syndicate, a notorious group that dominated the spice trade from Kessel to Coruscant. The Pikes thrived on the suffering of others, mining spice under brutal conditions and supplying it to crime lords across the galaxy. The Grey Guardians launched covert operations to sabotage the Pike operations on Kessel, freeing the enslaved miners and shutting down key trade routes. Without access to their primary spice routes, the Pikes' power began to dwindle, their financial resources drying up as their political profits shrank. The Black Sun Syndicate, operating from the shadows of the Mid-Rim, had a strong grip on several key systems, profiting from arms trafficking and piracy. Anakin, Quinlan Vos, and Aayla Secura led a daring mission to disrupt the Black Sun's operations, exposing the politicians and military leaders they had bribed to protect their illegal enterprises. By publicly revealing these corrupt officials, the new Jedi Order gave the people the courage to rise up, ousting their oppressors and reclaiming their governments. The Black Sun's influence rapidly waned as the worlds previously under its control began to revolt. The Grey Guardians didn't just dismantle the crime syndicates themselves, they also targeted corrupt politicians who allowed these criminal organizations to flourish. On planet after planet, they worked with the local people to investigate and identify the leaders who had sold out their people for personal gain. The Grey Guardians, now acting as peacekeepers and mediators, ensuring that these corrupt officials were removed from power, providing fair elections, and the restoration of democracy in many systems. By cutting off the funds and influence of the crime syndicates, the Grey Guardians weakened their ability to continue terrorizing the galaxy. Black market trade dwindled, and with the slave trade severely reduced, millions of lives were saved from suffering. Planets once under the control of crime lords flourished, their people empowered to rebuild their worlds without fear from the criminal underworld. News of the new Jedi Order's victories spread, and more worlds called upon them to help. Crime syndicates that were once untouchable were now in retreat. People who had lost hope began to believe in a future where justice, not crime, governed their lives. Hey guys, did you want to be a Jedi or Sith for Halloween? Then our Halloween bundles from Fantasy Sabers are perfect for you. This includes your own Jedi gown in black or brown, accompanied by an assortment of sabers to choose from at a crazy discounted price. If the costume isn't for you, then we're offering a free belt clip, as well as 10% off every replica and some Padawan sabers with the code Halloween up until the 31st of October. With the belt clip, all you have to do is simply slide the clip on any standard belt, and the saber attaches perfectly through either the D-ring or Kovatek wheel. Please check the product description before you purchase, as there are a few sabers that are not compatible with the belt clip. Check out these deals on our website, the first link in the description. Anakin stays in contact with Padme and talks with her every night. Their relationship became public with the formation of the new Jedi Order, which was a shock to those around them. But this was freeing for them, as they were no longer forced to love each other in secret. Padme had been working hard in the Senate to improve the jurisdiction that the new Jedi Order had, even trying to allow them the rights over new Force sensitives in the galaxy. But this would take time to try and implement, and there was a lot of fighting back from the Order on Coruscant. Meanwhile, the Clone War was booming, and the Republic and Separatists were still engaged in all-out war. Anakin spent most of his time on Coruscant, and thus, Palpatine slowly lost his influence over the boy. They kept in touch, but barely. Palpatine still wants to bring Anakin to his side, and knows to do this, he must disrupt the righteous new Jedi Order he's created. He plans to bring them into the fold of the Clone War, as he knows they will be a threat in the future. If he gets them involved, then they can be close with the clones, and taken out by Order 66 when the time comes. If this didn't happen, then there would still be close to 1,000 Jedi present in the galaxy to oppose the formation of his new empire. This cannot happen, as he contacts his apprentice.
We must bring the Grey Guardians into the war. Launch an orbital bombardment on Tython. Now.
Yes, my lord.
Dooku wastes no time and begins immediately. The Grey Guardians were shocked by this, not expecting this brash move from Dooku. They fought back with all their might and managed to force the Separatist forces into retreat. However, they did lose about 30 members in the raid. They convene back on Tython's surface, where the Grey Guardians Council convenes in the Temple Center chamber. Anakin, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, Quinlan Vos, Aayla Secura, their new member Plo Koon, who recently joined, and began discussing the raid. Kenobi begins by bringing up the absurdity of this move from Dooku.
This attack from Dooku is very suspicious. It serves Dooku and the Separatists no purpose.
Vos brings up that maybe the crime syndicates have paid for this, but Secura turns this down, that the cost of this will be too much, and considering the syndicate's current financial status, they don't have the funds to do this.
What do you think, Master Plo Koon? You knew Dooku the best.
Master Dooku does not hold an inherent disdain for our order, despite what we have seen. The concept of the Grey Guardians aligns with his nature. It's something I believe he could have embraced, even championed. Bringing us into the war doesn't benefit him. In fact, it may work against his true interests, but perhaps this was his intended purpose.
If it were 10 years ago, Dooku would be standing in this very room, a lead member of the Grey Guardians. He only isn't now due to his conversation to the dark side.
Anakin pauses, with his hand on his chin.
Do you think Dooku is beyond saving? Could we bring him back to our side?
Most of the council disagree, but Kenobi is skeptical.
Regardless, Anakin, we can use him to our advantage.
Kenobi proposes a plan for them to engage in contact with Dooku and trick him into a false sense of security of a temporary alliance and use this to understand the secrets of the Clone War. Kenobi reaches out to Dooku and proposes to meet up to discuss a temporary alliance. Dooku always had a soft spot for Kenobi, the apprentice of his master, and against his better judgment, decides to meet him on the neutral world of Mandalore, with Anakin there as well. They meet, and Anakin begins discussing the intentions of the Grey Guardians, to serve the people of the Republic directly, not just the Senate, and help improve the state of the galaxy.
Most admirable. If it were a different time, I would have joined you. But my path is set in stone, and committed to my course of action to reform the galaxy.
He then lays it on to Anakin.
If the Grey Guardians joined me and the Separatists, then we could no doubt overthrow the Jedi and Republic to win the war. This would achieve all our goals equally.
This is where Kenobi had to lock in and really play the act. If he wants to understand the secrets of the Clone War, he needs to manipulate Dooku directly. He gives Dooku hope.
This isn't out of the realm of possibility. But, Dooku, help me understand. The plan of the Separatists cannot be yours alone. Years ago you told me the Sith were in control of the Republic. Was that the truth?
Dooku pauses. In his mind, if the Grey Guardians join him here, together, they could use their power to overthrow Sidious and create the galaxy in their image.
It was the truth, Kenobi. I told you all you needed to know all those years ago. But it's not too late. If you join me now, together, we will defeat the Sith for good.
Anakin and Obi-Wan look at each other and tell Dooku.
If the Sith are in control of the Republic, then you've already won the war.
More reason for you to join me.
But Kenobi responds.
We cannot pledge our forces to you unless we know who we're dealing with. Dooku, do you know the identity of the Sith Lord?
Dooku pauses and feels that this is the correct path.
But of course, only I know the identity of Darth Sidious.
This is what they needed to hear, and Anakin and Obi-Wan ignite their blades, whilst the rest of the council approach from the shadows to surround Dooku. Dooku's eyes widen in shock. He was tricked, and has no choice but to surrender to the Grey Guardians. But he can't help but feel disappointed that he was blinded by the false hope of an alliance between them.
You disappoint me, Kenobi. I thought I saw Qui-Gon's honesty in you. Perhaps I was wrong.
They capture Dooku and take him back to Tython. Dooku sits in the center of the room with the council around him, and together they attempt to probe his mind, looking for the answers they seek. They channel their power together, going through Dooku's memories as he tries to resist. But the combined strength of the council is too much, and they find the answers they seek. They see images of Dooku meeting with the Shadow Darth Sidious, who lowers his hood to reveal the true identity of Sheev Palpatine, the Chancellor of the Republic. They all release their control on Dooku's mind and look around in shock. He was right, the Sith really were in control of the Republic. It all makes sense to Anakin. Palpatine has been grooming him all these years, slowly manipulating him. The council sit in silence as they bear the burden of the truth. Who do they tell? What do they do? They decide, since they have no jurisdiction over the Republic, that they need to force Palpatine to reveal himself, as he is too entrenched into the Republic. If they simply attack and arrest him now, they will be arrested themselves and deemed as traitors. But they start formulating a plan. They begin by hiring the galaxy's top assassins and bounty hunters, Cad Bane, Aurora Singh, Embo, Bosk, and many more, as well as the returned Sith, Darth Maul and Savage Press. The Grey Guardians pour all of their funds into this, and tell them their job is to assassinate the Chancellor of the Republic. Anakin reaches out to Palpatine ahead of his upcoming speech on Ord Mantell, and will use this as part of their plan to corner the Chancellor.
Chancellor, it's good to see you after all this time. Your speech on Ord Mantell is dangerous, and you'll need extra protection. Please, let me and the Grey Guardians assist you and help, my old friend.
Palpatine jumped at this, a chance to get closer to Anakin, and hopefully plant the seeds of conflict in the boy. Plus his favoritism to Anakin's order over the original Jedi would stir more conflict in the Senate.
Of course, Anakin. I would be honored with your protection.
They do this, and Anakin arranges his security, and the time occurs on Ord Mantell, where Palpatine begins his political speech and Skywalker stands beside him. But midway is when the hired bounty hunters attack. The Grey Guardians stationed there defend, whilst Anakin rushes the Chancellor to safety in the closest building as they successfully escape. But they turn around to see Maul and Savage standing there waiting for them.
Chancellor Palpatine, it seems you've fallen right into our grasp.
Thank goodness you're here, Anakin. I believe you can defeat these tyrants.
But Anakin pushes Palpatine forward.
I think you have the power to defend yourself, friend.
Palpatine's eyes go wide. Anakin knows the truth.
Seems the situation isn't as you thought, Master.
Before he can respond, Maul and Savage advance, causing Palpatine to ignite his lightsaber and engage them in a duel. Anakin looks up to the ceiling as he sees his camera is operational, recording everything, and they have all the footage they need. The new Jedi Order's council rush in and join the fight. Palpatine is completely outmatched against the Dathomirian brothers and the Grey Guardians council. Palpatine fights back with all his might, but he can't defend himself from every angle. He attempts to blast them with Force Storm, using his intense speed, but it's not enough to defend himself. He's disarmed by Anakin, and they take Palpatine under their control.
Get off of me, Jedi!
Time to face justice, Master.
They put the Chancellor in handcuffs, and the Grey Guardians take him back to Coruscant, where he will pay for his crimes. The following day, they bring Palpatine in front of the Republic Senate, and present the footage of Palpatine in battle, revealing himself as a Sith Lord to the entire Senate. Shock and horror encompass, as they further explain his role in the Clone War, working closely with Count Dooku to facilitate the war and to create the perfect environment for his rise to power. Maul stands with them and backs up their story, even detailing the creation of the clone army on the orders of the Sith. Maul is only doing this for two reasons: promises of a political pardon of any crimes committed, and a one-on-one duel with Kenobi after his confession. They also brought Dooku to Coruscant, whom they had captured, and used him to further corroborate their story. This was enough reason to have Palpatine stood down as Chancellor and under investigation. In the following weeks, the original Jedi Order presented all the proof they had, as well as the Kaminoans being called in to discuss their perspective and admit to working with Count Dooku and the Separatists in the creation of the clone army. Enough was enough, and Palpatine was arrested and sentenced to life in prison. However, the Clone War wasn't over, but without Palpatine's manipulation of the Republic, the clone army began to take the lead. The Kaminoans revealed the inhibitor chips, and they were all remotely disabled, restoring faith in the clone army, allowing them to continue fighting. The new Jedi Order joined the war, but instead of fighting against the Separatists, they started working with worlds post-battle to help facilitate regrowth and rebuild from the destruction of war. After the end of the war, with Grievous's eventual death, the galaxy enters an era of peace. Padme had been working hard in the Senate to make the new Jedi Order stand out, and her work, alongside their actions of bringing Palpatine and Dooku to justice, had increased their view in almost every senator's eyes. Padme puts forward a referendum of what Jedi Order should have jurisdiction over the galaxy: Anakin and Ahsoka's or Yoda's. The vote takes place, and Anakin and Ahsoka win. The new Grey Guardians take over the position of the galaxy's defenders of peace. Anakin stands in front of the Senate.
Thank you all for your confidence in us. We will not let you, nor the galaxy down. I swear it.
Anakin and the Grey Guardian Council send a message to every Jedi in the original order that any of them are free to join as long as they abide by their principles and swear to serve the people of the galaxy through and through, not just the Republic. Most of the members of the original Jedi Order join, however. Most members of the Council didn't. Whether it was out of pride or for another reason, they decided to leave and find their own path in the Force. But Anakin and Ahsoka had done it, brought peace and order to the galaxy, destroying the crime syndicate's influence, revealing the identity of the Sith, and are now committed to bringing peace to the galaxy. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out What If Anakin and Plo Koon Left the Jedi Order with Ahsoka, and What If Ahsoka Never Left the Jedi Order. Don't forget to check out Pentay Patrol's version of this story, and we're very excited with this collaboration. There will be many more to come, and make sure to comment on both of our videos. Don't forget to check out Fantasy Sabers, especially our Halloween deals, for the best sabers on the market, and may the Force be with you.